thank you all thank you so much to our guests for joining us. I am Yesenia. I am an intern at Urban Health Media Project. Urban Health Media Project is an organization that trains young journalists to report on different health issues, including mental health. So we do a show here on Instagram Live, and we like to focus on different mental health issues affecting youth. So for this show, we were going to be talking about social media and its effect on our mental health. So I'm going to begin by introducing our wonderful guest, and we're going to begin with Dr. Melissa Sporn. She is a licensed psychologist. She holds a master's in social work and a PhD in clinical psychology. Dr. Sporn is on the mental health committee of the Safe Community Coalition, a nonprofit organization that provides programs and resources to reduce stress, foster mental wellness, and empower youth. Thank you so much for joining us. And then we're going to introduce Dr. Linda Charmaraman. She is a senior research scientist at the Wellesley Center for Women. She's also the director of the Youth, Media, and Wellbeing Research Lab, a project funded by the National Health Institute, whose mission is to prevent negative health effects of social media and harness its potential to increase connections. Dr. Charmaraman received her PhD in Human Development and Education. And finally, we have Sawad Benison. Sawad is a freshman at Fordham University with a double major in African American Studies and Biology. Her biggest aspiration is to be a gynecologist. So again, thank you so much for joining us, and we are going to jump right onto our first question. Okay, so we're going to start very simple. Why are younger people more vulnerable to social media's harm on mental health? And we can begin with you, Dr. Sporn, if that's okay.
Sure. So I think there are several reasons. One is more 18 to 25-year-olds are using social media. So it's exposure. So higher exposure means higher impact. That means that they're benefiting from the positive aspects of it as well, more than the general public, the older generation, and obviously younger people. But it also means they're more exposed to the negative aspects. The other piece is their brain. Being that their brains are not fully formed, not fully myelinated, they're more at risk for the addictive aspects of these devices and these apps, and have less protective factors.
Okay, thank you for your input. Dr. Charmaraman, do you have anything to add to that?
Sure. I'd like to say that, first of all, my focus in the research that I do is on middle school youth. And that's at the really vulnerable age of getting your phone for the first time and logging in for your first accounts and looking at your friends' accounts, and parents also feeling very vulnerable about, oh my gosh, what am I going to do to guide my new social media user when they didn't get guidance themselves when they first joined. And so the main issues around that vulnerable age is the idea of peer influence being front and center, puberty being a huge raging hormonal monster in their head and on your body, and social comparisons happening that happens at every age in life, especially during that age, and also during that age, there's the cognitive sort of issues that Dr. Sporn was saying too, in that sometimes online dramas could feel like at the end of the world. If something happens to you that it really is embarrassing and mortifying, it feels very fatalistic. It feels like it's the end of the world. And so it could really increase the sort of weight of it on your mental health. So.
Thank you so much for your professional input as well. So what, according to your personal experience and friends, why do you think younger people are more vulnerable to social media harm on mental health?
I just want to agree with both Dr. Linda and, I'm so sorry, my
Dr. Melissa.
not working. Okay, sorry. Dr. Linda and Dr. Melissa. And it's also really easy to get sucked into social media because people only show what you want to see on social media. So it's really easy to be convinced that they're selling you this story that they're living a perfect lifestyle. They have like easy access to like have fun, and you think that this is somebody's everyday life. And sometimes it's easy to want to strive for a life like that when in reality everybody has their own problems, they have their own issues that they need to deal with. But it's so easy to sell a story or to sell a figment of what your life is that it's really easy to get sucked into it and try to make it your life, and that's when it starts to become negative.
And
Awesome. Thank you so much.
can I
Sure.
add something to that? So I love what you said. It's that idea of the highlight reel. Like, we're looking at everybody's highlight reel. Nobody's showing us their negative experiences or their, failures or their worst moments. And when you're comparing your everyday life to somebody's highlight reel, it looks so less than in comparison. So it's important to remember they're only showing you the best of the best, and they're all edited and using filters.
Definitely. Thank you all for that. And I'm going to jump onto the next question, which, according to multiple studies, young women are at higher risk to be negatively affected by social media. Why do you believe this is the case? Dr. Linda, we can begin with you.
Sure. I know that there's been studies done about the fact that girls are more likely to use social media than boys, for instance. Boys are more likely to be gaming and not using it for social interaction as much as activities, like kind of shared activities. And girls have a natural tendency to kind of have a little bit of a contingent self-worth based on how other people look and how they look and compared to others. And so there's definitely that body esteem issue. And of course, what you're both saying, the idealized selves that isn't an authentic, representation of their real self.
Yeah, I agree. Dr. Sporn, do you have any input?
Sure. Yeah, I think that girls, absolutely, you're 100% right. That idea of social currency, that the likes I get, the comments, the shares, all feed into young girls' beliefs about themselves and their self-worth. And boys don't have that, connection to social media in the same way. There are obviously some boys that do, but in general, girls link their self-worth to those likes, those shares, and those comments.
Totally. Sawad, anything to add to that?
I definitely agree with both of what you both said. I feel like as a female myself, sometimes you want to look a type of way on social media and you want to present yourself a type of way. And sometimes it does get extremely tiring. And most boys, like, they don't really go on social media, like, to sell a story or to look good for, like, the media. Whereas they're more, like, feeding into, like, the negative, like, oh my God, this girl is so pretty, but this girl is not so pretty. Like, it's more like they're the ones who kind of feed into that. I think I want to say, like, not lifestyle, but like into like the negative connotation of like, oh, you have to look a type of way. This is the type of thing that boys want to see, and that's kind of why girls are more likely to use social media.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for that. I'm going to move on to our next question. The Journal of Youth and Adolescence reports that there was a 25% increase in suicides among teenagers between 2009 and 2017. Today, suicide is the second leading cause of death among those aged 10 to 34 years old, according to the National Institute of Mental Health. According to your professional experience, do you think that the rising popularity of social media and the statistics mentioned, do they correlate? And I guess we can begin with you, Dr. Sporn.
So yes, I do think there's a relationship between social media use and suicide, depression, anxiety. We know this. Like, we see this in the research. Those individuals who have more social media accounts have higher incidences of depression and anxiety. There was a University of Pennsylvania study where they asked students to diminish their social media use by 30 minutes, just 30 minutes a week. And they showed decreased anxiety, decrease in depression, increase of sleep, and decrease of feelings of loneliness and apartness. So there is absolutely a relationship between social media use and depression and anxiety, which then results in feelings of isolation, feelings of hopelessness and helplessness. And as you talked about, that catastrophizing, that if something happens on social media, it feels like this is awful, this is forever, this, I'm never going to be able to change this, resulting in often isolation, and more despair.
Thank you for your professional input and for the study you just mentioned. Definitely did not know of that one. Dr. Charmaraman, anything to add?
Sure, I definitely see that there's been a rise of studies that might indicate that link between mental health and social media use. Although I would like to sort of caution us into stepping back and trying to figure out did the chicken come before the egg? Because sometimes people who are more depressed, more anxious, more lonely, more suicidal, they might use social media more. And so it might be something that we're not sure which direction that the relationship lies. So correlation isn't causation, although there's definitely there's definitely reasons to be worried about the links, but there's no reason to think that social media is sort of like a pill or a one road direction that leads to self-harm.
Right, definitely hard to figure out which came first.
So, and I'm just going to interject that we do have to be thoughtful about some of these like TikTok challenges or that do lead to self-harm, that actually are encouraging self-harm or negative behavior that can diminish self-worth and make people feel bad about themselves.
Unfortunately. So what do you see some of these statistics and social media correlate from your personal experience / friends?
I wouldn't say personally, but I have a few friends who social media has negatively impacted them. I'm sure you guys have heard, like, whatever you put onto the internet or into social media, even if you delete it, like, it's forever. Like, whatever you put on the internet, it's forever. And unfortunately, some things are so bad that they follow you for a long period of time. And it makes it easy for it to kind of become like your moniker, kind of. And it follows you, and people know you because of that. And that could also lead to self-harm or worst case scenarios, suicide. And there's also like this trend of romanticizing or dramatizing suicide or like being sad or being depressed. So it's really hard to support the people who genuinely are depressed and are going through a time of difficulty because of this this romanticizing of being depressed or being sad or like, oh, I'm not happy, when we should be focusing on the people who genuinely do need the help, because social media can be a really brutal place.
Definitely. I have found that to be a fact. There's, I guess, part of pop culture is to romanticize suicide, and that's very, very unfortunate. Thank you for your answers. I'm going to move on to our next question, which is, there are a plethora of causes for the decline of mental health within young adults, all related to social media. Fear of missing out, constant comparison to others, cyberbullying, and in more extreme cases, challenges that lead teenagers to kill themselves, such as the Momo Challenge, the Blue Whale Challenge. Other effects go beyond mental health, including eating disorders, disturbed sleep cycles, etc. According to your professional experience / personal experience, how easy is it for parents or peers to miss the signs that these things are happening to their loved ones? We can begin with you, Sawad.
Can you repeat the last part of your question, please?
Sure. How easy is it for parents, peers to miss the signs that their loved ones are going through all these internal issues caused by social media?
I feel like not necessarily personally, but it's really easy to hide. Like I feel like it's become like we've become so desensitized to certain things that it's really easy to hide when you're going through something, and to just, as most people have told me, to smile through the pain, and which is really unfortunate. And sometimes it also relates to just generational things and cultural things. Like, for example, as somebody who's Togolese and African and Muslim, my like family members or just like aunts and uncles, they don't really understand the severity of mental health. Like it's not really spoken about as much, and oftentimes people like who are like especially like immigrant parents, like they don't really talk about their feelings as much, and there's not really an open conversation between parents and their children, and it makes it really difficult for us to confide in them and tell them, like, you know, I don't feel good and I feel like so social media is really making it hard for me. And they kind of make it difficult, but it's like I feel like there's certain things that our parents as well, like it's a generational thing, like breaking generational curses. um but it's just like very difficult to talk to them because they don't understand it. They don't have the knowledge or the experience to be able to understand and help us. So it's not really their fault, but it's just like there's no comfortable way to talk about it because there's no way that you can make them understand.
I can totally attest to that as a Mexican, and it's very similar in our culture as well. Dr. Sporn, what would your answer be to this question?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and I loved your answer. You know, I think that generation gap is really significant. I think often parents respond to concerns about their child's social media by just saying, I'll take the phone away, or let's just delete that app, not recognizing the degree to which that app connects you to your peers. And removing it, or just, you know, taking the phone away, actually can be destructive, not constructive. And so really helping your child and helping your young adult navigate and address the social media's impact so that you can have social media without it being destructive.
Definitely.
Sort of, you know, that idea of abstinence is not an option
Right.
with this, but it's learning how to navigate it healthily. And we'll talk about that soon.
Thank you. Dr. Charmaraman, what would your input be?
Yes. I wanted to also echo the fact that there's a lot of stigma in different subpopulations in addressing or acknowledging mental health issues, and the stuff that happens online also is offline. Like there's a stigma on offline for telling anybody that you're having any problems. We just had a study done on Asian American youth, and as an Asian American myself, I'm Thai American. You know, there's a lot of, we are the group in the U.S. that is the least likely to look for and seek mental health support because of losing face and stigma concerns. And, you know, heaven forbid you post something that you're struggling on social media, because then it's archived and your family has lost face. And some groups are more open to reaching out when they need help, you know, because they really rely on their online support network for that pick me up, you know. So I appreciate that you were talking about the stigma on mental health, which is online and offline.
Right, definitely. Thank you for your answers. I'm gonna move on to the next question. I'm sure you're all aware of this. It was a big news. Last month, Frances Haugen leaked documents that revealed her former employer, Facebook, owner of Instagram and WhatsApp, was aware of the harm Instagram was causing on teenager girls, but decided to ignore the issue. Do you think that it should be up to parents to monitor, prohibit the use of social media? Would this be a good strategy, or are teens too hooked on these apps? And we can begin with you, Dr. Charmaraman, again.
Well, I love this question because I happen to care a lot about the guidance that the youth are getting or not getting, you know, from either the parents who may or may not be equipped to do it, who may or may not know that they are the ones that they're looking to as socializers, but also schools, digital literacy programs, mentors, coaches, peers, everybody socializing everybody to use it in ways that they were taught or not taught about social media. And so, yes, the tech companies have their role in, in incentivizing things that might cause more mental strain and addictive qualities with algorithms. But there's also how users use the products. You don't have to use all the different features. You can mute things, you can turn things off, and you don't have to follow everybody that is causing you harm. And so there's so many ways in which users can be empowered to learn about how they can make it more safe for them. And that's what I'm hoping that more attention is on that, as opposed to the tech companies, which is just another business. In my mind, there's just all these businesses out there making products, and as consumers, we all need to figure out a way to protect young people from the negative features of those products.
Absolutely, it definitely is. Dr. Sporn, any comments to that?
Yeah, I would add that we as adults need to model healthy technology use. And really, I think there's an age and stage where we may wish to monitor our kids' use as they are sort of onboarded into social media. We may want to observe and watch and comment when things are done that are inappropriate. And then we also have to be modeling technology free time, and that we don't need to be on devices while we're having meals, or we don't need to be on, maybe having family time where we're not checking our devices constantly. So it's really, they're benefiting from observing us interacting socially. And when we look again at mental health issues and social media, one of the things that we note is that individuals who have higher social media have fewer social interactions outside of social media, so actually in-person interaction. So really encouraging with your kids that they're interacting with their peers. I used to have a basket at my front door when kids came over to play with my kids when they were younger, and we'd say, okay, put your device here while you're hanging out. Like, we don't need your devices while you're hanging out with each other.
Yeah, I definitely agree. More families should totally enforce that. So what do you think that it's up to parents? Would you, as a user yourself, completely listen to your parents if they told you you're not allowed to use your phone or Instagram?
Growing up, well, I'm still pretty young, but my middle school days, was when my mom gave me a phone, and she was very vigilant when it came to me using it and being so active on social media. So if there was a point where I was doing bad in school or something like that, she would take my phone. And as an older sibling, um, I I try to take responsibility. Like with my little sister, as a girl, she can relate to me, so I try to tell her, like, when she's only 11 years old, but I told her, like, you know what, don't be quick to go on social media, because honestly, it's not as appealing as people make it out to seem. And I try to protect them kind of from just social media, because it can be nasty and it's really easy, especially because this younger generation, like the kids who are like younger than me, it's like crazy. Like I don't know what's going on, but it can get crazy and people can be nasty, and I try to protect them from it. But also, I do appreciate some of the efforts that are being made on certain social media apps. Like there's the little thing, like whenever somebody posts something about the COVID vaccine, for example, there's like a little information dot and it tells you about the COVID vaccine. Or like when there's something graphic, it's the post is covered and it tells you this is graphic and may be uncomfortable for some viewers. Proceed with caution. Like I do appreciate like the small things like that, even though it's not that big. It's like the little things that add up that make it like there's somebody within the system that cares for people, especially young people. And like you said, just to echo what you said, the people who make these like apps, these tech companies, they're just looking for another dollar sign or for their stock to go up or like to be worth more. So they don't really care about the people that they're affecting. They just want to make the money and advance further. But they don't understand the effect that it has on like young people.
Definitely. I think that was one of the main reasons why I decided to quit social media, just figuring it out, all the marketing strategies. But I will move on. um, do we, this kind of relates to what we were just talking about. Do we need to pressure the government to regulate tech companies? Dr. Sporn, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that tech companies, if they are not able to take on the responsibility of both governing the age limits of who should be on their apps and the content, I think that there should be some governmental oversight, kind of like, the radio and communication device companies can't just kind of broadcast hellacious things. There are restrictions of what you can say on daytime TV or what you can't. I think there should be some oversight body that's looking into and looking at what technology companies are producing, what apps are out there, and kind of giving some governance. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Dr. Charmaraman, what is your opinion, professional opinion?
Yeah, I think that there is already, for over a decade now, there's been a rule about, you have to be 13 to be on social media sites. However, the enforcement of that is quite lacking, and people can override that so easily, right? And people are 8 and they're going on Snapchat, and although they do say in their clause that, as long as you have parental permission, at least somebody has oversight over that child. But most of the time, the parent, often doesn't really know that they're not supposed to be on this site. And so the real harm is in that the advertisers think that they're a certain age, that they're sending these ads that may not be appropriate for this age limit. And so it's much better to have a system where it's a lot more tightly controlled how people get to sign on to social media sites. If there's any kind of there needs to be an age sort of permit, like you have to verify your age, perhaps. And they've had this movement already in Europe, where it's a lot more tightly controlled how young you can be on social media. So it can be done. US is kind of a little slow on that end.
Agree.
Yeah, and we couldn't necessarily do this in America, but China has set limits on the amount of social media use that their teens can use. So they can only be on for a certain amount of time, a week. And so those kind of things would be interesting to implement.
Yeah, that would probably be a little bit more difficult in America.
Yeah.
We'll have some backlash for sure, but that would be great. So what are your thoughts?
I really don't have much to say. I completely agree with both of you. And also, like, I feel like the government is lacking. There is definitely ways to limit social media use, or to limit younger children from using social media. But the first thing that came into my head is, like, this is a capitalist country, and we are very much a powerhouse, and we're always looking for ways to make more money, and social media makes a lot of money. So I definitely think there are ways to do it. It's just like America doesn't want to.
Right. Okay. I'm going to move on. According to the New York Times, new laws around the world, which is, I think, something some of you mentioned, new laws around the world require people to prove their age on different platforms to access certain content. YouTube has begun doing this here in the US with some of its videos. Do you think something similar to this should be done on Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok? I think we kind of answered that in the previous question, but if you have anything to add to that, what would be some ways that we can do that? Like, by asking parents, or just anything that you might want to add to that. If you can start, Dr. Sporn.
Yeah, I would say identification. Many, certainly high schoolers have licenses in different states at 15, at 16. You could have parents having to sign on and show that they're, with IDs. I mean, there's definitely ways that we can create at least some scaffolding, some, system of verification so that young people aren't being exposed to things that are really inappropriate for them.
Right. Agreed. Dr. Charmaraman, anything to add?
Yeah, just a quick add to that is there social media companies have a generalized problem of trying to figure out who are the people that actually sign on to these accounts. Are they duplicate people? Are they the same people as the, like how many accounts do people have and how many fake personas do people have? So in general, I think social media companies need to do a better job at verifying that these are real, separate humans and who are these people, because some of them, if they're trying to be more hidden and more confidential and private, they could be often on to not so good intentions, so
Or bots.
or bots, exactly. So
Right.
I think we
Definitely.
lost it. I think we lost
Yeah,
somebody.
we lost Awad.
Oh no.
Yeah, I can't. She's not on the list anymore. But I mean, we're almost done, so I guess hopefully she'll join us before we end it. Okay, I'm gonna kind of wrap this up, and we don't have much time left, so we'll finish up with how do you recommend those affected by social media's negative effects mitigate with it? Dr. Charmaraman, we can begin with you.
So in the end, we want to see how social media's effects is not just the quantity of time. A lot of people are focused about quantity of time. It's about also the quality of time that you're spending on it and the content and who the user is. And so some people could see the same exact content and be affected in such different ways. Some could be so much more vulnerable to some of the negative effects of the idealized versions of people, just like Dr. Melissa was saying, and other people could go on it for hours and hours, but it's engaging content, it's educational content, and there's nothing negative about the effects on the rest of their life. But whereas somebody else might go on it for just a half an hour and they can't yeah,
I'm sorry.
That's okay, no worries.
It's okay. Yeah, so really blanket statements about the harm or the benefit across all adolescents or all young people aren't as helpful in nowadays, because it's about looking at individual susceptibilities and looking at the family context, looking at what other vulnerabilities they have offline with peers and their mental health in general too.
Thank you so much for your answer. Dr. Sporn, what is your opinion?
So I'm going to sort of go through what I call my social media cleanse. And one is recognizing and just being aware that we can become addicted to these apps, and they can have a negative impact on our mental health. So one is taking an audit of what apps you use, how much you use them, and how they make you feel. So after I use an app, do I feel better about myself or do I feel worse? One is creating a better experience online by unfollowing celebrities or anybody who does make you feel bad. I want to make sure that you're, like assessing what is the impact of each person I'm following or each app I'm using. Modeling good behavior, that idea of kindergarten rules. So I'm going to be civil and kind to others, treat others the way I want to be treated. Don't bully, don't, be nasty with other people. Think about your motivation when you get online. Why am I online? Why am I browsing now? Is it because I'm bored or I'm feeling bad about myself? Might I do something else that would make me feel better? Go out, call a friend, read a book, listen to music, watch TV, interact with my pets, something that's going to make me feel better. And Jane, I'll just answer Jane's question. She asked about, is ADHD made worse by social media? And again, this is a chicken and an egg thing. I think that individuals who have neurological issues, whether it's ADHD or depression, anxiety to begin with, or Asperger's, autism, can be more negatively impacted by some of social media's things because of their inability to kind of screen and inhibit use. They can be more prey to social media's addictive qualities.
Thank you very much for all those tips. They're very helpful. Dr. Charmaraman, do you think that social media makes ADHD worse?
I was actually just having a conversation about this with another colleague, and absolutely there's in some cases there it looks like it could exacerbate somebody's tendency to maybe fixate on something and really get into it and not realize that it could be something that you can get sucked into. However, the opposite end of it is that sometimes it's a soothing, you know how there's this big craze on fidget spinners and like, you know, stress relievers. Sometimes it's an escape mechanism that could help some people kind of regulate some of their mood. It all depends on the individual and how and these techniques might be helped or hindered by the family context. So
Thank you.
One of the recommendations is to be active, not passive. In other words, not to just be a voyeur on social media, not just observing.
Yeah.
I'm not just sort of scrolling through everybody else's, you know, highlight reel, but I'm actually posting or I'm engaging or and selecting those things, because there's a lot on social media that's positive. You can follow mental health related apps and or accounts that provide support and encouragement.
Thank you for your professional opinions. So what I think you missed the final question, but I'll repeat it. How do you recommend those affected by social media's negative effects mitigate with it?
I feel like it's such an open-ended question. Like, there's so many things that I could say. As
Can
someone,
I ask specifically what you do? What have you done to help mitigate the negative impacts of social media for yourself?
I feel like for me, like you said before, be active, not passive. I feel like as somebody who's extremely active on social media, I try to post things that are, like, I have to ask myself, like, is this like something that people are going to be interested in? Is this something respectful? Is it something that is gonna like educate people? I try to post things that educate people, and I try to make sure that I'm posting things that are not negative, because I'm not a negative person, and I always try to like further any messages that I believe in. Like, I believe in intersectionalities of different cultures. I believe in the equality and equity for between men and women. You know what I mean? So it's like making sure that what you're putting out is a reflection of what yourself. And I feel like my page is a reflection of who I am, and the things that I post are a reflection of my beliefs, my personal opinions, and I try to maintain a positive presence on social media, and I think that's what I do. And I feel confident that if somebody were to come to my page, they would leave like they learned something new about me, about a cause, about someone. Like, I remember some people like swipe up on my post, they're like, oh my god, I didn't know that there's such an inflation on insulin prices, and like people can't get insulin with healthcare, which is mind-boggling, and people don't know these things. And I try to further the knowledge of things that are not often spoken about, and I feel like that's what I try to tell myself, like, was this educational, was this nice, or was this something that somebody could take away from?
Totally. So kind of what youth media well-being is aiming towards, right? So expand the use of social media for positive things. So like educate people, different good things around the world, or let people know all the things that are happening in the world that, you know, they would otherwise not know. So I think we have come to the end of our amazing conversation. It is definitely a topic I'm very close to and very passionate about. So I am very grateful to all of you for joining us tonight and educating us in this very important topic. Thank you so much for joining us, and please keep an eye out for an article we'll be writing about this conversation and a very short video. So thank you again. Have a wonderful night, and thank you for everyone who participated.
Thank you.
You have a good night. It was so
This
Thank
is a
fun.
you.
wonderful platform for people to get
Absolutely.
really good information and feel better about themselves. This is good social media.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Well, we couldn't do it without you guys. So thank you again, and have a wonderful night.
Yes,
Have
you
a good
too.
night, y'all.
Learned so much from you all. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.